Hey everyone, this is Niels with another tutorial for Cloud Manager. And this time I'm going to show you how to set up a cloud provider for Amazon AWS. Okay, so let's get started. Click on Extras, Settings. And then we're going to add a new provider. I'm going to call it AWS Toot. You might want to choose a different name. Click OK, and then we're going to choose a different provider type. It's not Azure, it is a provider plugin. And then the plugin name is Amazon_Cloud, so we can leave it as is. Now we have to figure out the key ID and the key of our Amazon AWS user we've created before. And if you haven't done so, we have a tutorial link is shown down here in order to set up AWS for the use with Cloud Manager. So if you haven't done that, pause this video and get back if you're ready. Okay, so we go to Services, to IAM that manages the AWS resources. And then we see users, and you should also see a 1 here since you've created that in the tutorial before. And click on 1 here. You might have chosen a different name. I have chosen Royal Render here. Click on that link, and then we get an overview of everything related to that user. And now we want to create a new key. Maybe you've done so if you followed the tutorial before. So you need to go to Security Credentials here and go to Access Keys. And you might have one key here as we have here. But the problem with the keys is that if you don't save the plain text password on creation, you have no chance to get that back. So in order to create a new one in case you forgot to save it, that's no problem. We create another one here. Click Other, Next, give it a name like Royal Render Toot, for example. You might want to choose a different name. Create access key, and then we are presented with our credentials that we need. And access key translates to our key ID here, and secret access key translates to our key here. So we can copy the key ID by clicking this button here and then paste it here. Then copy the secret access key here, paste it into key. So it's not shown here because it's a secret, and all good, all fine. In order to see if our credentials are right and everything is set up correctly, we can click on this button called Test Connection, and it also loads the available locations that we can choose from. So we click on that button, and that really might take a minute, up to 1 minute. So don't worry if it takes a bit. All right, awesome. That was successful. Click OK. And then we have now our available cloud locations here. We can click on that drop-down box, choose A1 may be EU West 1C, for example. And then we can move on to the virtual network settings here. First, we have the virtual network resource group. You can leave it as is. We just have a default name here that is the name of the provider you chose, and prefix that with an RR. The same goes for the VNet name, the virtual network name. You can leave it as is too. Then we have the host subnet IP range. So the subnet mask for basically the whole virtual network you're creating, or the wizard is creating in a later step. Then we have the render subnet IP range. That is also a default. You can leave that as is in most cases. So if you want to change something here, you really have to know what you're doing. But if you know what you're doing, then it's okay. Then go ahead and do your changes here. The render subnet IP range is the pool that AWS is going to fetch IPs from when creating new render nodes. And then we have this checkbox that decides whether Royal Render should take care of creation and management of the whole VPN connection. And in most of the cases, if you don't know what you're doing, please leave that as is, because you don't have to care about anything. Everything will be done automatically from here. So, and if you really know what you're doing, you can remove the check mark here, and then you can choose a different render subnet name. So the subnet where the render nodes reside in. And, but you have, if you remove the check mark, be aware that you have to take care of everything else related to the virtual network. So we leave that checked for our setup here. Okay, then we can move on to the OpenVPN settings. We have the tab device name that can be left untouched here. The subnet IP range is okay. The default is okay for us. The client subnet IP range is also okay. So that is the IP range, or the pool where the IPs are fetched from for the client that is running on site. Then you have the VPN local network IP range, and that is something that you really have to change or adapt to your needs, because you might have a different local network IP range or a different subnet mask. For us, it's okay, but remember to make your changes here. Then we have to choose the VPN VM size, and the size consists basically of 3 values. One is the number of cores of that machine, the RAM size, and the disk size. And then we can click the load available VM sizes. So the Cloud Manager fetches them for us. We can click on the drop down menu here and then select one that suits our needs for the OpenVPN server, because that is what we're configuring here. We might want to choose the T2, not micro large, 8 gigabytes. That sounds reasonable for that task. And we can move on to the VM image. And in most cases, you want to use the default image we're going to provide, because you don't have to care about setting up the OpenVPN server. We've already done that for you in that image, so you can use default image and then it is set for you. It fetches it from our AWS account. And then we can move down here to the VPN username and password. We can leave that blank because AWS uses SSH key files, and the key file creation is covered in a different video. See the link below if you want to follow that right now. Pause this video, create your SSH key file, and get back here. And in order to get that, you should have saved it somewhere on your hard drive. I'm going to choose it from here, and I named it AWS WinPoly PPK. PPK is the PuTTY private key format, because we're using PuTTY as internal SSH client. You can click on copy as path here and then paste it into this line here. We remove the quotation marks and change these to normal slashes, and we are done for this part here. For convenience, we have this download link for OpenVPN. You can follow that link, download the client, install it, but you don't have to do any configuration so far. That will be done in a later step when the Virtual Network wizard is used within Cloud Manager. Okay, so we can move on to the Royal Render settings part here. We have the Royal Render root network path. We have that here. In our case, it is the IP 192.168.0.61, and the share is called Royal Render. And optionally, we have the same here if you are using an NFS, a network file system, instead of Samba, but we're using Samba. Then we have the Cloud Manager IP. That is the machine that is running the Cloud Manager. In this case, in our case, it is 192.168.0 and 60. Okay, so make sure that these IP addresses are adapted to your needs. It's just our example here. This just works for us. Make sure that this one matches your needs. If you are hosting a separate share on a different file server, you might want to enter the host name and the IP address of that file server. Here in our case, it is Royal Share, and the IP address is 192.168.0.167. We have a Windows file server running here on that IP address, and it has this host name, and so you should adapt that also to your needs. Okay, we're done with that. And then we have, as a last section, the Active Directory settings. And most of the time you can leave that blank, just in case you are managing all your random machines with Active Directory. You have to enter these settings here. You have to enter the domain URL, the organizational unit, the domain admin username, and the domain admin password. And you can use this button to test if those credentials are right. And then you can move on from there. Okay, so that's it for the cloud provider entry here for Amazon AWS. We've learned how to enter the credentials. We've learned how to configure the virtual network, and we've learned how to configure the Royal Render settings here. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how to set up a cloud connector that makes use of this newly created cloud provider. Thank you very much, and see you next time.